What's up, everyone? Welcome back to episode 4 of the BamaCollegeTake podcast. In today's episode, we're going to be breaking down the Tennessee game, going over the box scores and stats from that game, along with some film analysis. And then at the end of this episode, we're going to have another guest picker for our Gameday Picks, and also briefly touch on the South Carolina game coming up this weekend. Before we get started into the stats from the Tennessee game, just a couple things to note. Three-star edge Corey Howard, who was previously committed to Georgia, flipped his commitment to Alabama over the weekend. Four-star quarterback Trent Seaborn, who's been the starting quarterback at Thompson High School since he was an 8th grader. He took the Warriors to a state championship and won it as an 8th grader at one of the toughest places to play in the state of Alabama. And I know Auburn's been targeting him for a while, so he committed to Alabama over the weekend. And then the number one quarterback in that same class, the class of 2027, 5-star Elijah Haven, has been crystal balled to Alabama. Not committed yet, but the VP of recruiting at On3 has crystal balled him to the University of Alabama. As far as recruiting goes, we had a ton of high-profile recruits visit for the Tennessee game over the weekend. Just an unbelievable atmosphere. I don't know how it can get much better than that in regards to a recruiting aspect, a recruiting spectacle of everything. Just a great experience, and it's working out for us. We're getting a lot of recruits. But with that being said, another stat is we're in a tough stretch of games right now. After week 1, I know how I felt. I don't know if you knew. If you remember how you felt, but I remember how I felt. And one thing I just remember thinking is, after the Florida State game, is the rest of the schedule, especially this stretch that we're in right now. At Georgia versus Vanderbilt, at Missouri versus Tennessee, and then South Carolina, who we thought was going to be a little bit better. We'll get more into that later. But really, the 4 previous games we just played was kind of nerve-wracking, after week 1 to think about. But of those 4, that 4-game stretch, the 4 ranked teams Alabama has beaten are combined 23-1 in games against teams other than Alabama. Georgia's 6-1, Vanderbilt's 6-1, Missouri's 6-1, Tennessee's 5-2, and their other loss is to Georgia. So that's other than Alabama. Just an insane, historic 4 weeks for the Crimson Tide. We hope to keep it rolling. This weekend is going to be an obvious trap game. We'll get more into that later. But right now, let's break down the Tennessee game and the stats and the film from that. All right, welcome to the Tennessee game breakdown. Just really quick, going to go through each passing, rushing, and defense, receiving also. Give them letter grades, just talk about overall performance. Tide came out with a W 37-20 in the third Saturday in October, which was great to see. It was great to get some payback. It was really smoky after the game, which was also good to see. But starting off here with Ty Simpson. Ty has looked so good since week 1. He's looked so good. He's leading the Heisman race right now, and he deserves it, in my opinion. He really does. Just on and off the field, Ty has been a leader, and he's looked great in every single game so far since week 1. In this game particularly, though, he was 19 for 29, 253 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 to Isaiah Horton, 1 to Rico Scott. 65% completion rate with a QBR of 89. Ty has looked so good. And, just going off that touchdown pass to Rico Scott, this team has added layers, and we just keep adding layers and improving since week 1. Not just with Ty. Obviously, you see that week in and week out with Ty, but also the receiving. We keep adding layers. Latier Brooks, Rico Scott. Not one guy just stands out. It's a collective, and also the offensive line. There's been every single game this year. I think there's been a different offensive starting lineup for the offensive line. And it's competitive, which is good because you need depth. You need layers, and this team just keeps adding layers and improving. People were doubting where the pass rush was going to come from this year. Yanze Pierre has stood out. True freshman Landon Simmons has stood out. just not trying to get on a rant or anything, but this team has just added layers, which is great to see because that's what you need to have. You need to have depth in the SEC to win it and to win the national championship. Not to get too ahead of myself, I'm just saying that's the teams who have done it in the past every single year has had that, and we just keep adding to that since week 1, since the Florida State game. And Ty looked great. The offense still looked great. Ryan Williams had he was the highest graded SEC receiver this week with a rating of 87.6. He looked good. His hands looked amazing. Jamarcus Shepard said post-game that he didn't drop a single ball in practice this week. He didn't drop a single ball in pregame warm-ups except the very last ball in pregame warm-ups. He dropped it and was like, all right, let's go. And he didn't drop a pass this game. He looked really good. You see the receiving better there. But with all this being said, all right, obviously I'm going to give Ty an A. I'm going to go with an A this game for Ty. He looked really good again. You could argue A+, but I'm going to go A. Just because, I think he didn't hit his ceiling in this game. And I say that because I don't think this offense has hit their ceiling yet. Kalen DeBoer has already said it in interviews this week. This team has not hit their ceiling offensively. We started off the game with a 90-plus touchdown drive, and in the second half we had a 99 and 75 yard touchdown drives. And with all of this, with Ty looking how he's looking, the great receiving core that we have, which has looked phenomenal, we haven't hit our ceiling. And we haven't hit our ceiling because of the run game. We're not complete. Jeremy Bernard, who's our wide receiver 1, is our leading rusher. It's not a running back. Jay Miller, 12 carries, only 15 yards. Very surprised to see Kevin Riley have negative yards there this weekend. But we haven't hit our ceiling. And this, like I said, this offense keeps adding layers, but we haven't hit our ceiling. And eventually, I hope that we will. And you may ask, what is the ceiling for this offense? Well, it's going to be whatever the run game allows it to be. Just bottom line. That's all it's going to be. You got to get the run game going a little bit more. We saw it. It was pretty good versus Vanderbilt. Georgia wasn't bad. But they just haven't hit their ceiling yet. Rushing, I'm gonna go C+. It just wasn't there. I'm not giving B and upwards to the run game when our wide receiver 1 is the leading rusher. Like all of this, you see the potential without the run game. Obviously, we've seen it these last 4 weeks because it hasn't been there. So just imagine what it could be when the run game gets going, and when we get a real run game established. Maybe that's after the Carolina game this weekend. Who knows? But eventually it's got to get going. All right, receivers. Receivers looked really good this game. Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard looked great. Latier Brooks, a true freshman, looked great again. Rico Scott with the touchdown. Isaiah Horton with the touchdown. It was his only reception of the game. He didn't catch a single ball after that, but he scored a touchdown. Receivers looked amazing. I'm going A+. I'll go A. I'll go A with the receivers here. There's a couple things that needed to be cleaned up, just some small details. Nothing major like that. So I'm going to go A with the receivers here. And Offensive Player of the Week this week is going to go to Ty. Ty just continues to look so good. He continues to take care of the football, make the correct reads. Ty has looked so good so far since week 1, and I hope he continues that. Very well deserved. Everything that he did have a fumble this game. I forgot about that, but nonetheless, he's looked great. It was I guess you could call it a fumble. He was trying to make a throw, and the defender hit his hand, and it went forward, and they called it a fumble. Apparently, it wasn't forward motion, so they rule it as a fumble, but not much else Ty can do there. Really, just on the line there. But defense has really stepped up. Defense has looked great. Xavier Brown, that 99-yard pick six, completely changed the game. That was absolutely electric. That was the loudest I've seen that stadium since Georgia last year, the Ryan Williams play versus Georgia last year. And just the momentum the emotion change and the momentum swing after that play was insane, because that was a huge play. You know, we only would have been up by 2. I think it would have been 16-14. And Xavier Brown just completely changed the game after that. That we'll look at that later, but it was 99.5-yard pick six, and completely because momentum in games like this mean everything at times. You know, it's a top. Was it a top 10 matchup? It was top 15 for sure. I think Tennessee might have been ranked 11. So, but games like this, momentum is and can be everything. And that was a huge play from Xavier Brown there. Gameday Picks looked amazing. Really, I said it last week. You can go back and look. I said it on the podcast last week. I said the key to win the Tennessee game is to pressure Joey Aguilar, and to because Tennessee didn't let up a single sack versus Arkansas, and to not give up sacks of our own. And this team did exactly that. Gameday Picks played a huge role in that. Alabama had 4 sacks. Tennessee had 0. Alabama didn't allow a single sack this game, which was huge. And it's exactly what I said last week. You know, we had to pressure the quarterback, and we had to give Ty some time back there, and that's exactly what we did. And you know, one thing I saw this game was just the depth that we have. Watch how long this list goes. I mean, just guys that got, like Noah Carter. He's a true freshman. He was seeing snaps. Red Morgan was seeing a lot of snaps. Xavier Mincy seeing more snaps. Dijon Lee got the start. Michael Carroll, another true freshman, started on the O-line. This team's just adding layers. You just keep adding layers. I mean, Damani Jackson, who's a 5th-year senior, he might be. I think he's a 5th year. Might be a 4th year. Either way, he's a senior. Could have been drafted last year, and you know he didn't even start. I mean, this team's just adding layer after layer after layer. But defense, I'm gonna go with a B plus, because there were Tennessee had, you know, they had 20 points. It's, you know, you won the game, so that's all that matters. But there were some things that needed to be cleaned up, and might look into some of that later. But defense looked really good, and defensive players of the week, yes, players, it's going to be Xavier Brown and Gameday Picks. Gameday Picks stat line: 6 total tackles, 5 solo, 3 sacks, which, you know, obviously is 3 tackles for loss. Former 5-star nephew of Courtney Upshaw, former Alabama player. He's really stepped up. Like I said, people were questioning. We don't have a Dallas Turner this year. We don't have a Will Anderson. They're questioning where the pass rush was going to come from, and he's stepped up, and he's played a pretty good role in that so far, especially this game. Looked like he shot out of a cannon this game. But to defense, I'm going to go B+. And now we're going to look into some film breakdown. The good, the bad, the ugly. I think I'm actually going to go the good, and the ugly. No bad. There was one just kind of ugly play, and this was just a great game in general. So I'm going to take away the positives here. So we'll get into that next. All right. Welcome to the bad. Let's go ahead and get it out of the way. So this is the film breakdown of the Tennessee game, just really quick. This, to me, in my opinion, was the worst play that Alabama gave up. Because I say that because it's a play we shouldn't have. It shouldn't have happened. It ended in a touchdown, and it shouldn't have been a touchdown. And let's show you why. Let's show you why it shouldn't have been in a touchdown. So Number 0 for Alabama, Deontay Lawson, is a veteran linebacker. He could have got another guy that could have gotten drafted last year, but he decided to come back and play another year. He got injured, season-ending injury versus Oklahoma last year. He decided to come back. He had a great season last year, and so a lot's been expected of him. He's a captain for the team this year, and quite frankly, he's been outplayed by the other linebacker, number 10, Justin Jefferson. But specifically on this play, let's just watch. All right, welcome to the good. Like I said, we're going to do 2 goods this week, as opposed to the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're going to switch it up and stay a little bit positive this episode. So we're going to do 2 goods. We already did the ugly, so let's do 2 goods. This is going to be one of them. I'll let you guess what the other one's going to be here in a minute. But to me, this was also a momentum swing. A momentum change. We scored first. Tennessee drives the ball down. They score. They got a 3 and out. If it wasn't a 3 and out, they still got off the field. We didn't score. So they get the ball back, and they could easily go down the field and score right here. But instead, so just watch this. Watch number 42. He's on the line. He's lined up. It's Gameday Picks, defensive lineman, edge rusher, down there at the bottom of the line. Number 42. Just watch him right here. I'm gonna try to pause it super quick. All right, boom. The ball is right here where my mouse is. You can kind of see it. It's a little blur there. And look at all these guys. Gameday Picks has the best jump out of all these guys. He's ball snap, boom. He's off the ball. So just really explosive right there. Just like he shot it. Like I said, he looks like he shot out of a cannon. Just boom. Already he's on the go. Best jump than anybody. And then he gets physical. Look at this. Standing this old lineman up. Just, getting his hands inside. Boom. Just absolutely manhandling the guy, shoving him back into the quarterback. Like Gameday Picks doesn't really like himself. Like obviously he's the one that pressured the quarterback, but like himself, he really didn't. He gets a great jump there, like I said, and then just he's shoving the O-line. He's just manhandling the O-lineman back into the quarterback, and that's what the pressure is. And then they force. At first, I thought it was a fumble, which would have been recovered as a touchdown, if not on the 1-yard line. But it was intentional grounding. When intentional grounding is in the end zone, it results in a safety. And so we got 2 points there. We got the ball back, and just a huge momentum swing. You can see they're gonna, throw a flag, safety. Intentional grounding, safety. And all because of the physicality and the bull rush from Gameday Picks right there. So that's one of the goods. All right, welcome to the last good. This is really this week. It's really the ugly, the good, and the great. This was a great play. Huge momentum swing. A key takeaway. The best play the entire game. After this happened, kind of it's only halftime, but people were like, okay, Alabama's probably gonna win this game after this play happened. Obviously Zabian's Brown 99.5-yard pick six. It was a great play. And it's right before halftime. Tennessee, it's 16-7. Tennessee could have made it 16-14, and which is obviously a 1-possession game instead of 2, and then instead it becomes a 3-possession game. So let's just break down the play here, because a little bit more happened to it than you kind of think. So Tennessee goes in motion. They called a timeout, and I guess this is what they drew up out of the timeout. You got the up back here, and you can see Zabian Brown right here, and you can see his eyes. His eyes are reading this fullback right here. Because whatever this fullback does is going to tell him to play. If the fullback shoots straight down, he knows it's a run play. He can kind of shoot in, kind of set the edge. If he goes out flat, he knows it's a pass play. So he's reading the fullback here. That's what you do at corner when it's a tight formation like this. You read the up back. Linebackers are reading. Linebackers, I really can't tell who they're reading. Safeties are reading tight ends and running back, but the corners, play side corner at least, is reading this up back. And so Zabian Brown's reading him. You can here, that kind of got in the way. You can see him. He's reading them, and it kind of looks like this fullback did a good job just off the jump, because it kind of looked like it was he kind of like sold it as a run play. Kind of went flat, and then he came out. He kind of went straight and then out. And so Xavier Brown kind of stutters, and then he's like, oh, it's a pass play. But also, Deontay Lawson right here gets through, and his presence, he's a really tall guy. So his presence right here kind of caused Joey Aguilar to float that ball. This probably would have been a real bullet pass to the fullback right here. But because Deontay Lawson, got in there, got pressure, and he jumped, put his hands up, which makes him even taller. Aguilar kind of had to float it over, which gave Xavier Brown enough time, because he kind of stutters, but it gave Xavier enough time to break on the ball, and then boom, off the races. This was an insane play. Bryant-Denny Stadium was going absolutely insane. You could hear it from 3 miles away. It was insanely loud and just a great atmosphere. You got the recruits over here watching it. This was crazy. Everyone, just huge momentum swing. Everyone was going crazy, except the Tennessee fans there, obviously. And you can see it here. He's reading now. He's like he's reading this was good. He's reading the fullback, and then once he sees that it's a pass play, his eyes immediately go to the quarterback. So it's kind of like a zone. He's reading his man, but then it kind of becomes a zone coverage. He's reading the quarterback after he gets the route, and he makes a break on the ball. And then you see Deontay Lawson there, kind of he gets pressure right here, which kind of makes Joey Aguilar kind of throw it off his back foot a little bit, floats it, gives Xavier Brown enough time, and then boom, look at that, one man to beat, and you're not going to catch him. That was a great play. I'm just going to keep watching it. That's how good of a play it was. I'm just going to keep watching it. All right. And that was the last good. Obviously, a lot of good plays from this game, but that was the best. So now we're going to have our guest picker on. We're going to do our pick'ems, and then kind of break down on the South Carolina game. So. All right, welcome to the Gameday Pick'ems section. We're here with our special guest picker this week, Mr. Jay Dobbs. How you doing, Jay?
Pretty good, Jackson. Pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. Jay is a former alumni of Morris Hill, alumni. Anyway, he graduated from Morris Hill Bible School in Florence, Alabama. Some say he's a bit of a legend there. Others kind of disagree. He's a 3-time All-Area football player for the Panthers, baseball All-State his senior year, and Mr. Morris Hill at that. So we're excited to have you on, Jay. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. We know you're a busy man, so.
Well, I appreciate it. That's a lot of high praise coming from you, Jackson.
All right, let's get into it. Jay's a bit of a ball knower himself. Doesn't know too much because he is a fan of the Auburn Tigers. So something's loose somewhere up there. So he doesn't know that much. But nonetheless, let's go to our first game here. It's Oklahoma versus Ole Miss. The spread's Oklahoma 4.5. Another top 15 matchup. That's just life in the SEC these days. Just another ranked matchup. I've got Ole Miss in this one. I'm sorry. I think this is whoever wins this game kind of determines if they make the playoffs or not. Both one-loss teams already. Oklahoma's first in total defense and has the number 1 pressure rate in the country. But I think the key to this game is Ole Miss is second in the SEC in not allowing sacks. And Oklahoma has gotten by the past couple weeks, especially last week versus South Carolina, with only scoring about 20 points or so. And I think you're going to need to score a little bit more than 20 points versus Ole Miss to get the win here. And I don't think they do that. I think Ole Miss's defense and offensive line is just going to hold up too much. And so I've got the Rebels in this one.
Yeah, I think this could be an interesting one. I mean, like you said, both teams are, one loss. This is kind of a top 15 matchups, kind of, who could make the playoffs. And you see Oklahoma coming off of a big win, even after coming off of a big loss to Texas the week before. But Ole Miss losing in a close one to Georgia last week. But I think the Rebels will bounce back, and I've got Ole Miss in this one.
Yep, I agree. All right, next game here. Let's just keep on rolling into it. Washington versus Illinois. Illinois is ranked 23. Washington's still favored. Spreads Washington 4.5. It's at Washington. Washington's quarterback Damon Williams, he's having a breakout season so far, and he's thrown for 1,800 yards and 10 touchdowns so far this season. And they played pretty close with Ohio State when they played at Washington a couple weeks ago. I think Illinois is just a little fraudulent this year, so I've got the Huskies.
Yeah, I've also got Washington in this one. Illinois has just been kind of inconsistent. I haven't really liked them this year. Ever since that Indiana game, I've just not been a fan of them, so I'm going Washington as well.
Yeah, that Indiana game was I think I picked Illinois to win that one, not going to lie.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we got Iowa State BYU. I've got the Cougs in this one. I took them last week. Their defense, they capitalize well in opportunities to create turnovers. Their freshman quarterback, I think his name's like Bayer, like Bachmeyer or something like that. I could be butchering the last name, but he wears like number 47, which is kind of odd for a quarterback. But Iowa State, their two starting cornerbacks have been out all season since the Cincinnati game, and since that Cincinnati game they haven't played very well. So I've got BYU in this one.
Yeah, I've also got BYU. We've seen them be pretty dominant the last couple of weeks, and just really been impressed with them. Not really been impressed with Iowa State. So for that reason, I'm also going to be a BYU fan this week.
All right. Next game here, another top 15 matchup in the SEC. College Game Day is going to be there. It's Vandy versus Missouri. Vandy's currently favored by 2.5. I chose Vanderbilt last week. A bunch of people thought LSU was going to pull it out. I picked Vanderbilt. And they were favored, but a little bit of an upset versus LSU last week. I never thought I'd see the day where Vanderbilt beat LSU, but this isn't your dad or your granddad's Vanderbilt, so they say. It just kind of sucks because Alabama had to be the team last year for people to realize that. But anyway, so all right, I've got this graphic says I have Vanderbilt. Because when I made this, I had Vanderbilt, but I'm actually going Missouri. So I need to keep that in note when I'm updating the standings next week. But I'm going with Missouri in this one. Don't pay attention to the graphic right here. It says Vanderbilt. I've got Missouri. These are both very, very similar teams. Both are run-first teams. They got quarterbacks that can run the ball. Ahmad Hardy with Missouri's been phenomenal besides that Alabama game. Both convert very well on third down. Both pressure the quarterback well. And both got beat by Alabama. So very similar teams, So where's the separation at? It's who they've played against. Like I said, both are run-first teams. Both have quarterbacks who can run the ball well as well as pretty solid running backs. But Missouri's played Jalen Daniels with Kansas. They've played Jackson Arnold. They've played Lenore Sellers. So they've seen a dual-threat quarterback multiple times already this season, where Vanderbilt really hasn't. And I think that's going to be the key difference. And Vanderbilt just hasn't seen the magnitude of mobile quarterbacks that Missouri's seen so far. So I'm going with Missouri, actually. The graphic says Vanderbilt, but I'm going with the Missouri Tigers.
Changing it up. I don't like that pick. I think this is Vandy's year. You've seen a lot of growth in this Vandy team, especially even from last year. Even after beating Alabama last year, you've seen a lot of growth this year, and really like Diego Pavia and what he's got to do and what he means to that program. And I've just been impressed with his leadership, but also kind of his toughness and attitude. And College Game Day, at this game is crazy. So there's going to be a lot of hype around this game, and really interested to see, the outcome of it. But I do think Vandy's going to hold strong. Not a big fan of Missouri after the overtime win against Auburn last week.
That's true.
But I do think Vandy will come on top this week.
Yeah. I just thought it was interesting. What do you mean by it's Vanderbilt's year there, Dobbs? What do you mean? What do you think their ceiling is? Let me ask that. What do you think their ceiling is? National championship or just playoffs? Like, what do you think it is?
I'm going to throw a stat. The ranked top 10 for the first time in a long time. I don't know how many years it's been, but
100 probably.
Yeah, it's crazy. But anyway, out of the past 65 years, they've only been ranked, I think, 6 total. What was the stat? I saw some stat. They've been ranked at least, this will be 7 weeks in a row, and that's the first time in like 65 years or something. So Vandy's showing a lot of improvement, and I think a playoff team to potentially could make a run for sure.
Yeah, I can see them making a run. I don't know if they'll make the SEC championship or anything like that, but anyway, let's keep it rolling here. Next game we got here is Mississippi State, Texas. I've got the Bulldogs in this one. Mississippi State, they've fallen just short the last couple of weeks. Besides that, excluding that Texas A&M game, which they kind of hung in there in the first half, and then the Aggies kind of took away with it in the second half. But other than that, they fell just short the last couple of weeks with versus Tennessee, Florida, and I think this is the week they finally get it done. And I think at the end of this game, the world is gonna, or maybe not the world, but the country at least, people who love college football are gonna know a lot more about Fluff Bothwell, the running back at Mississippi State. I think he's gonna have a great game versus Texas, and Texas is just another team I think is a little fraudulent this year, especially going into overtime with Kentucky. Just very surprising. I think they're ranked 22nd. Which some say is fine, but I think they're still a little overrated because there's some teams you could throw in there over them. So I'm going with Mississippi State in this one.
Yeah, I like that pick. I've also got Mississippi State. And kind of like you were saying, I've not been impressed with Texas the past couple of weeks. Arch Manning has not had the best showing as he was anticipated to be, and especially against Kentucky, you see, that's a hard road win for them. And the SEC is just so tough, but Mississippi State has come just short. Well, I think this is the week that they bounce back and get them one.
I agree. All right, next up we got LSU, Texas A&M. This is going to be a night game in Death Valley. A&M's favored. The spread's A&M minus 2.5. I've got the Aggies. LSU is 21-1 in night games in Death Valley under Brian Kelly. That one loss being to Alabama, might I add. However, they're also 5-10 in ranked games with Brian Kelly. So take that as you will, but LSU also doesn't have a 100-yard rusher in a game yet this year. They're 117th in rush yards per game, and they have the lowest play action rate in the SEC, which obviously that correlates. How do they have the lowest play action rate in the SEC? It's because they can't run the football. And everybody knows they can't run the football, so they know they're going to, they know when they go to fake the, handoff, it's going to be a pass play. So no one thinks you can run the ball, and everyone knows when you're going to throw it. And A&M's fourth in sacks this year, and LSU's starting left tackles out also, which I think that plays a factor. So I've got A&M in this one.
Yeah, I've also got A&M, and this is a tough one for me. I like LSU, even though they have not really had just the type of season that they're anticipated to have, at least at this point, with a couple of losses. But I do like A&M in this one. They've played very strong the past couple of weeks and really have been a dominant team, and especially running the football. And so really excited to see this night game there in Death Valley. But I do have A&M kind of on top of this one.
Yep. All right, Dobbs, next up, Arkansas Razorbacks versus the Auburn Tigers. Spread is currently Arkansas, minus 1.5. It's in Fayetteville. Kind of the same thing with Arkansas as Mississippi State ever since Sam Pittman got fired. They've kind of been right there the last couple of weeks. With Tennessee, played close with A&M. So they've been right there in close games the last couple of weeks, and I think they get it done against a struggling Auburn team. Not the most exciting SEC matchup this week, but I've got the Razorbacks.
Yeah, definitely not the most exciting matchup. Being an Auburn fan, it's been a rough couple of weeks, you could say. But I do think this could turn into at least a good matchup and a good game. Both teams, struggling recently, but still trying to find at least their place. And Auburn specifically, I think, will at least find a bright side in at least what feels to be a dark hole right now, and so I do have Auburn coming on top, but I do think this could be a really good matchup and a really good game.
Yep. How do you think? Say Auburn does lose this. How do you think? You think Hugh Freeze still has a job next week or no?
Auburn loses one of the next 3 weeks, and Hugh Freeze, I think, will be gone. I'm surprised he's not gone already, but if he loses Arkansas or Kentucky next week, I think that will be the final straw for him.
And let me say this, no matter how much Auburn struggles this year and whether or not they have a head coach when they come to play Alabama, it's not going to matter, especially being at Jordan-Hare. They always somehow find a way to, go toe-to-toe with us, especially when it's at Jordan-Hare. So I just wanted to get that on the record before we move on. But now we're going to move on. Last pick here, South Carolina versus Alabama. The spread's currently Bama 12.5. Ty Simpson's scorching right now. He's thrown for over 1,900 yards. He leads the Heisman race right now. 18 touchdowns, only 1 interception, which is versus Vanderbilt. Jared Menard has looked great. Over 470 yards receiving, 5 touchdowns for him. He looked like a solid wide receiver 1. Ryan Williams, a lot of hype around him this season, and he hasn't really underperformed. He's just kind of been, right there. 423 yards receiving, 3 touchdowns, and then obviously the connection with Isaiah Horton and Ty Simpson. Isaiah Horton's got 5 touchdowns, 272 yards. And so I think the passing game is really going to affect South Carolina's defense. Just my opinion, because their defense is solid, but they've been struggling on long downs. 1st and 15 and so on. They've struggled a little bit this year, and on money downs, 3rd down, Alabama's pretty. I wouldn't say significantly better, but it's not a close margin. Alabama's 49.5% on 3rd down, whereas South Carolina's 33.3% on 3rd down conversions. But I think key players for Alabama this game is going to be Deontay Lawson. He's got to have really good eye discipline this week with a dual threat quarterback. Alabama's notoriously bad being on the road as a double-digit favorite versus a dual threat quarterback under Kalen DeBoer. Absolutely terrible. Oklahoma, Florida State, Michigan. It hasn't been good. And we broke it down earlier, or at least I did in the film breakdown segment. Deontay Lawson's got to do a lot better in his cutback lanes, especially with a guy like Lenore Sellers being the play caller for South Carolina. Ty Simpson's obviously got to have another good game, being in a hostile environment. It's going to be packed out every time a team plays Alabama. It's sold out because people want to rush the field afterward if they win. So he's got to have another great week. Yonze Pierre's got to continue to get pressure. Deshaun Jones, another player who needs to step up, with good eye discipline this week. But I think really it's going to be the safeties, Bray Hubbard and Keon Sabb, who's going to be the biggest factor this week because they have to have really good eye discipline and downhill aggression. And have a really good ability to read the quarterback, with play action pass, and Lenore Sellers just being a dual threat quarterback. He was up there in the preseason Heisman race. He's insanely athletic. So we just have to be really disciplined on defense this week, and we'll get it done because this is Kalen DeBoer, after the Missouri game, he didn't really have to. He said in the post game he didn't really have to enforce the 24-hour rule, which is you celebrate for 24 hours, and if you win and then forget about it, you move on to the next opponent. He didn't really have to enforce that after Missouri. He said guys didn't really celebrate; they were already locked in for the Tennessee game. Well, they celebrated the Tennessee game. Let me tell you that. They celebrated the Tennessee game. We all did. But we do not have a bye this week. We play at South Carolina. We have a bye next week, which a lot of people are looking forward to, potentially. We go to South Carolina, and this is the last game in this tough, stretch that we have. So it's going to be the one that's overlooked. South Carolina's been off the radar and has underperformed all year. So this is an obvious trap game, We're a little banged up still, especially on the defensive line. We've got a bye next week, like I said, that they may be looking forward to because it's been a tough stretch. So I've got a little some doubts about this game. It's an obvious trap game. It feels like the Vanderbilt game last year a little bit. And like I said, we've been notoriously bad as double-digit favorites, especially with dual-threat quarterbacks. But obviously, I'm going with Alabama. Kalen DeBoer did say today in a press conference interview, said, quote, "We're not done with the stretch. We're still in the stretch. We're not thinking ahead to next week where there's a bye week. We want to keep the pedal down and keep attacking." So that kind of felt good to hear some reassurance there, knowing this is an obvious trap game. But yeah, I'm done yapping now, Jay. I've got Alabama, obviously. Roll Tide. So go ahead.
Yeah, had plenty to say there. Had plenty to say. Not a bad thing. Alabama has obviously been on a hot streak, really ever since that Florida State opening week 1 loss. But this is an interesting one. Like you said, it's almost a trap game. Being at South Carolina, it's going to be rocking in that place. Going to be a good atmosphere, a tough atmosphere for Alabama to come play. But you see South Carolina coming off a pretty bad loss to Oklahoma. I think they only scored, I think it was 6 points, 6 or 7. And so didn't look good last week. But I do think Ty Simpson has been playing lights out the past couple of weeks, and it's going to be really hard to stop Alabama's offense. You mentioned several of the receivers that are stepping up in big ways. So really interested to see how this one comes out. I do think that it's got a lot of potential to be a trap game for Alabama, but I do think that Alabama will still come out on top on this one. Kalen DeBoer's wearing the black hoodie. It's hard to pick against that one. But coming off the Tennessee win, that was one that a lot of people were considering could go either way, and it was going to be a really good game. But Alabama looked strong, and a lot of good things to say about them right now and how they're playing. So I am going to go Alabama in this one.
Yep. Yeah, that receiving core, no one guy really stands out. It's kind of been, versus Missouri, Ty threw to 9 different receivers. Last year, Brooks, a true freshman, has really stepped up. But yeah, that concludes today's episode of the Bama College Take. Jay, we appreciate you coming on here. We know you got plans. Like I said, you're a busy man. So I appreciate you taking time out of your day to, do this with me. But I'll update the standings after this week. We'll see where you fall with our other guest pickers so far. But I thank you guys for tuning in, and hope to see you next week. And Roll Tide, right, Jay?